Welcome to the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast, and we have got an Eventing Podcast Classics for you listeners. So we are throwing it back to 2016, an episode that was first released actually on the 17th of November, so just over 4 years ago, and it was the second episode of our Locker Room Talk series, and we spoke to Gemma Tattersall about all things badminton, Rio, and a tough finish to her 2016 Event Rider Masters series. It's a really honest interview. Gemma is always a great person to talk to because she tells it how it is and really, really speaks from the heart. So we hope you enjoy, and I think it might be time that we get Gemma back on the show very soon. So stay tuned for that. But for now, this is a classics from 2016 of the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Eventing Podcast.
Welcome to the Eventing Podcast, and a very warm welcome whether you're joining us on iTunes, SoundCloud or at eventingpodcast.com. Thank you very much for being with us, and we have a very special show for you because the next rider in the Eventing Podcast Locker Room Talk series is none other than a member of the British team at the Olympics in Rio this year, top 10 at the Europeans last year as well, and finished the 2016 season with the highest number of FEI ranking points. Hello, friend of the show, Gemma Tattersall.
Hello, Nicole and Derm.
Well, Derm, you're with us as well.
I am. It's just me. Sam's sick. He's not in a good way at all.
Oh dear.
So,
I don't think we want to ask.
You actually definitely don't want to ask.
No.
You can imagine. It's not good. It's not good from any side of him.
Gemma, thank you so much for joining us because you've had a really, really busy year and we know you're absolutely jam-packed over the winter as well. And it's great to have you on the show. I think it's safe to say 2016 has been your biggest year yet. So shall we start there?
Yeah, it certainly has been a huge year for me. Obviously, the last few years has been geared towards getting to the Olympic Games. So sort of Arctic Soul, Chicabella and Quick Look have been building up to try and get selected. I never thought in a million years that I'd actually have all three horses up there ready for selection. It was sort of beyond a dream, really. Obviously, towards the end of actually a selection happening, and then towards the end of actually getting to Rio, we ended up with only having Quick Look because Arctic Soul had a tiny little injury and Chicabella sort of wasn't quite fit for travelling. So it ended up being the gorgeous Quick Look, but we were all very happy to take her along, and both Arctic Soul and Chicabella will be back out next year ready to rumble. So yeah, certainly a big year.
If we go just back to the start of 2016 when you had all three sort of in the reckoning and you were a real hot favourite for the British team on one of them, weren't you? Was there quite a lot of pressure, or did you feel that at all, or were you just trying to do your thing and focus on the best you could do?
Listen, I put more pressure on myself probably than anyone else can put on me, because I want to go out and do well, and I'm a real perfectionist, and I want to go out there and do the best I can. So I think the pressure I put on myself is greater than anyone can actually put on me. I was so keen to try and get there, and that was my dream. It's been my dream since I was a little girl. So I was absolutely focused and complete one-track minded, and you can ask all the people around me. I mean, I was probably horrendous to live with, just disgusting, in fact, to be honest.
I'm sure Matt wouldn't say that.
No, I think he actually probably would.
Yeah, I'd say Matt would definitely say that, Nicole.
I think he actually probably would. I was really probably not a very nice person for a little while there, but I was just totally and utterly focused and one-track minded, and I was living and dreaming, and literally living and dreaming it, and somehow we made it happen.
What did you do differently in the build up to Rio that you were living and dreaming it? Did you change routines, or was it just all about that one event?
I didn't really change any routines at all. I probably was just a little bit more obsessive than I normally am, which is probably quite a challenge, to be fair. I'm not very good at switching off, and there was certainly no switching off at all. I was absolutely on a mission, and I just didn't really think about anything else. I was riding all day, every day, which is what we all do in the season anyway. So no, I didn't really change my routine, but I certainly didn't go away from the yard too much.
What did it feel like, Gemma, when you were... So I know I've heard you talking about Pebbles before and how much she would love it, in terms of her personality and how much the Olympics as a spectacle would suit her personality. What did it feel like just before that test, just before dressage, and then, what was it like walking into the arena to do you that first test.
Yeah, that feeling of going into the arena at the Olympics was pretty awesome. But at the time, I was pretty focused on her and me and what, trying to ride the best possible test, get the best mark out of her on that day that I could. But yeah, you're sure aware of the fact that you are at an Olympic Games, and obviously it was my first Olympic Games, so it was pretty an amazing feeling trotting into that arena, riding such a special little horse for sure. Leading up to the games with her, I knew that she would love it. She loves the attention, she loves the big occasion. The more people there, the better. She's such a little show off. And certainly, none of the crowds or anything affected her in any way. She absolutely loved it. She loves the attention and everyone around her. The more attention she gets, the better.
Cool. We watched it where were we? Were we in Gackham? Yeah. So we were all crowded around a little TV. I had you down probably as low 40s. Were you disappointed? 47.2?
For sure. I was really disappointed with it. It was quite difficult in Rio because obviously we were there for a whole week before starting the competition. So it's really difficult to kind of gauge how much you needed to do with the horses. And Pebbles travelled extremely well and she was bouncing off the walls. When we got there, she was excited and full of it and slightly strong and excitable. So we worked her quite hard the day before, and then just before her test in the morning we worked quite hard, and then I was probably on her maybe 10 or 15 minutes too long just before my test, and she actually just dropped off me in the arena, so she was very slightly behind the vertical the whole way. So she actually didn't do a bad test. She made one big mistake, which obviously that can happen, but she actually didn't do a bad test. The problem was that she was an inch or 2 inches behind the vertical, which obviously is a mark per movement less than she normally would perhaps be getting. So that's how that happened. I wasn't actually disappointed with the way she went. I was obviously disappointed that we didn't get the mark that we perhaps could have done.
Yeah, you'd had a 38.2 at Barbary, and then low 40s really all year, apart from Fontainebleau.
Yeah.
What was the feeling like in the British team after the dressage?
I think we after the dressage we were pretty positive. Although Kitty, myself, and Pippa perhaps didn't quite get the scores that we wanted to, I think we were still in a fairly competitive position, and we knew that the course was seriously tough. So we knew it wasn't going to be a dressage competition. Talk
to us about the course, actually, because Sam has this lovely little phrase for Pierre Michelet, and we've started calling him Michelet the Menace, which you can join us with if you like as well. What was your first impression of it? When did you walk it?
I walked it, first of all, I think it must have been like 2 days before Trot Up, maybe, or 1 day before Trot Up, can't remember. But I thought, oh my God, I think pretty much sprang to mind.
Was that the edited version?
That was the definite edited version. Yeah, I thought, my goodness, kind of was thinking this is Arctic Soul's track. Little quick look, would be probably a little bit inexperienced for this course. We were not expecting quite such tough angles. Not only tough angles, but really huge fences. I mean, fence 6, those 2 corners. I mean, we could barely see a way through. So yeah, I mean, we were pretty concerned that we had 3 horses on the team that were actually fairly inexperienced. So yeah, I think at that stage we were all thinking, my goodness, at this stage as well, when we very first walked the course, we didn't know what order we were going in. So that was still sort of on the cards to what order we were going to be going on at that point.
I think that's an important point. How did that feel, or when did you find that out, and how did it, at what point, whether, before you go out, did you think, okay, I'm now at my first Olympics and I'm
going
Pathfinder?
I wasn't expecting it going out there. If I'd been riding Arctic Soul, for sure I would have expected it, of course, but I wasn't, and so I was sort of hoping for a second or third part of the team, but it so turned out that sort of the others weren't keen on going first either, and it was sort of who was in the end it was sort of who was brave enough to go first. So yeah, that ended up being me.
Actually, I was talking to your mum, a lovely Marcel, who we're all we love Mummy Tat. But at Blair in this summer, and one of the things we were talking about your cross-country riding is you always look like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're so focused. And it is, no matter what is going to happen, you are going to get to the other side of that fence. And when you're watching as a spectator, you almost feel so much trust in you because you look so confident. Is that something that comes naturally, or are you just really, really determined?
I am a very determined person. I am beyond competitive. And so, yes, the confidence over the years has certainly, got more and more. I've got more and more confident. Like the last few years, I have got a lot more confident because I do still suffer with nerves, and I know a lot of people are surprised by that, but I do get ever so nervous. But most of the time it's because I really want to do well and I don't want to mess up. I'm not really scared. I just want to go out there and do well. So obviously at the Olympic Games, that is a huge part of it. You're riding for the British team. They've, trusted you to go out there and do a job and, do a job to try and for the team. So it's a kind of a big thing.
And what was the feeling like on cross country morning?
I think we were all being fairly sick, to be honest with you. I think we were all looking fairly green and in the toilet a lot. And it was, we were all desperate to go out there and do well, but it was slightly unknown. William was sat on Chile, so I know that he had a silly 20 penalties, but he was sat on a more experienced horse, so he sort of had more of an idea what was going to happen. But to be totally honest with you, me, Pippa and Kitty were sat on fairly inexperienced horses for that course. So we felt pretty nervous about it.
And it's safe to say it didn't quite go to plan.
No, that's an understatement, Nicole.
Yeah, I was trying to kind of skirt around it, and then I thought, no, just go in. But you came home and you did manage to take information back for the team, which has got to be a massive part of it. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, obviously, Quick Look she was a little bit headstrong and not quite on my side for whatever reason. She is an incredible jumper, and she went out the start box and she actually had a little touch at the second fence, and it made her incredibly careful. And she then jumped fence number 3, which is a big table, absolutely enormous, and frightened herself. And I didn't have enough time between fence 3 and 4, where I had my first problem, to settle her down. And she was just running through the bridle and not quite with me. And that's why that mistake happened. And then obviously when you've made a mistake so early on, it's a blooming long way home from there. So my aim was to try and jump all the jumps, get home, so that I could get a score on the board and give everyone as much information as I could. So that was my aim.
What's that feeling like, Gemma? After all that build up, all the excitement, you've just had a problem at fence 4. Yeah. What's it like mentally as a rider there at that point? It's not just about knowing that you have to get home. I remember Nicola had to do it at Blair, but just for yourself, like, is it crushing disappointment, or do you put that to the back of your mind, or how much does it go through your head that, okay, this has happened now?
Yeah, obviously it's at the time when it happens, I've got to deal with this. And then as you're cantering away, I thought, God damn it, we've had a stupid mistake. What a stupid thing to happen. Right, come on, I've got to, put that behind me now. I've got to tackle the rest of this course and get this horse home safely. And that was my focus for the rest of the round. Obviously, when you finish, actually, this was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, is finishing at the Olympics, having made 2 mistakes on course, managed to get the horse home safe, got her through, and all the grooms took her and were looking after her and getting her cool. And I had to go and do press, and I had to do about 10 different interviews with people, all asking me the same questions. And I can tell you that was a really, really hard thing to do, because all I wanted to do was curl up and cry, and I had to kind of take a deep breath and go out there and try and be smiley. And yes, it is crushing disappointment, but at the end of the day, it's a sport, and it's a sport where 2 of you have got to work together. And on that day, for whatever reason, it just, we weren't together. If you'd been at any other event in the world and I'd had that problem at fence 4, I'd have walked home and gone somewhere else.
Yeah.
But you don't get that opportunity when you're riding for a team at the Olympics. No,
that's a no-brainer. You can't do that. So you pick yourself up and you have to carry on and get a score on the board, which is.
And how different is it riding in a team compared to, like you say, just doing it if you're out there by yourself it's your choice. What's the different pressures that you get?
Yeah, I think you still have to go out there and do it for yourself, because that's what you do all day, week in, week out. And you have to try not to change too much. But the pressures of being with a team is, it's very obvious. And also, it's not only riding for a team, but it's also, everyone else, is watching you and relying on you to go out there and do a job. And that's a big deal and a big pressure.
Having gotten through the tough part of the Rio look back, the Sunday must have been a day that you enjoyed.
Yeah, I feel I'm fairly confident in the show jumping phase, especially on that little horse. And, she went in and jumped a beautiful clear round. So I was incredibly proud of her, to come out after not an ideal day the day before, where obviously everyone could see clearly that she was fairly strong and feisty. And, I had to sort of slightly battle with her right till the end. And then the next day she came out, and bounced around and jumped a beautiful clear. So I was pretty proud of her.
I remember the smile at the finish, like you.
Oh, thank God, yeah.
As you came over the last, you looked for the first time like that. There was not just a sense of relief, but also like that pride and excitement was definitely there, having finished the job well.
Yeah.
What's it been like afterwards? Because you've had a huge amount of interest in you, isn't there?
Yeah, obviously getting back from the games was kind of a weird feeling, because we've worked so hard for so long to get to the Olympics. Your first thing is getting selected, or being good enough to get selected, getting selected, then keeping the horses in one piece, making it to Rio, then actually getting on the team, because at the end of the day, there was a travelling reserve. We were there for a whole week before that horse still had to stay in one piece until the dressage started. So then, that's all quite a kind of a big deal. It's a constant kind of slight worry, slight, apprehension. What's going to happen? Is it actually going to happen? Then obviously you're going to compete, you're doing this. Obviously we wanted to bring home ultimately the gold medal. A medal would have been fantastic. The gold medal was what we were aiming for. That didn't happen. We were disappointed with our performance. We were happy that we had 4 sound horses at the end of it. But, we went there to win a medal. So obviously, as team members and myself, I was disappointed in my performance. So coming home from the Olympics, it certainly was a moment that I felt, a little bit low in myself and a bit like, oh God, now what kind of thing. So yeah, it was then quite nice to have a few nice young, beautiful young horses to look forward to riding, and a few things to look forward to. That was certainly nice to have. I look forward to going to Blair with the lovely Santiago Bay and things like that, to then be able to refocus and look forward again.
I think that actually leads us on. Sorry, we're both very overexcited, because that leads us on well to talk about Santiago Bay.
Yes.
And we don't need much excuse to talk about it, do we,
we got you on, Gemma.
That's funny.
Because you do realise that Derm has already decided the podium for Tokyo.
Yes, I did hear that, yes. Yeah, Kizzy. Kizzy is an absolute star. She is an adorable horse to have around. We all absolutely love her to bits. She is as sharp as they come to ride. I have to make sure that I am absolutely on it when I ride her in the school, because she will whip round so quickly I will fall off her head. Yeah, I have actually fallen off her in the school in front of Matthew once before, which he found highly amusing, as I was jumping her and made the mistake of coming down to a double of uprights with fillers underneath, and she whipped round so quickly I went straight over her head. So she is the most fantastic horse, but you certainly have to have your wits about her, you at all times when riding Miss Kizzy.
And she only stepped up to 3-star level this year, didn't she?
Yeah.
But she went really, really well. She had 2 podium finishes in the Event Rider Masters.
Yeah. She, so last year, she went from, being a novice horse to going to Le Lion. She won a 2-star. She was fantastic last year. And she's just the most amazing horse cross country. I had a conversation with her owner, Caroline Touch, and we just said, look, let's just literally let her tell us what we want to do next. And we quite literally took each event as they came. We didn't once sort of think, we actually didn't really make any plans. our only plan was to do an OI and then go over to the CIC 2-star at Fontainebleau. From then, we then literally, she went really well at Fontainebleau, let's enter her for a first 3-star, which she was balloted out from. That was Belton. She was balloted, so she didn't make it there. We then decided to leave it and not run her again. She then ran in her first 3-star at Chatsworth. Thought, if she runs well there, we'll enter her at Bramham. She ran beautifully there. She then went to Bramham. And it literally went the whole year like that. We didn't once make a plan. We just said, if she runs well here and feels good, we'll enter her. We might enter her for this.
Is that quite a nice feeling? Because you haven't got the pressure of looking at one big event.
Yeah, it's literally amazing. We literally just went with the flow and, let her tell us, really. Yeah. And she, she had breaks in between and went out in the field for a couple of days. And, there was just no pressure, really. We just enjoyed her.
She holds quite a cool record at Barbary now. I mean, not too many of the 8-year-olds go to Barbary, but it's the best finishing score by an 8-year-old horse ever at Barbary.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Am I right in thinking she was bred to be a show jumper?
Yeah, she was. Caroline Touch brought her from the Goresbridge Sales in Ireland as a 3-year-old, unbroken 3-year-old, and as a potential jumper / eventer. So she turned out that she absolutely just loved the cross country. So
I think
it's a no-brainer.
Dam, can you remember watching her at Blair in the show jumping when there were all those problems and the time was really, really tight? And she just was a machine.
Do you remember me getting excited?
Yeah, I do. I do actually.
You get a bit overexcited.
I have on occasion, but was it before Blair, Nicole, where you had the chat with me? I think it was. So
yes, I think it was.
I was getting too excited apparently for Nicole in.
No, that was Blenheim. To be fair, that was Blenheim.
We're going to come on to Blenheim for Gemma, but before we might as well come on to it now because this ties in well. Gemma's round would have been one of the rounds that you would have been talking about. So there was so much for me to try and remember, Gemma, about who was going to be in what position if what things happened. Now I know.
Tell me about it.
This is going to be a sore one. We've already dealt with it.
Gemma.
Potentially, I mean. Let's start with the dressage. Another time that it was definitely across the board at Blenheim where we were seeing tests that were all across the 40s.
Weren't we all grumpy riders?
There was a lot of grumpy.
There were lots and lots of grumpy riders.
I thought I was going to get my 30 in the 30s. So I was quite grumpy as well. So I thought I'd have 9 people. So I had 21 in the Event Rider Masters that were sub 30. And I thought I was going to have 9 people sub 40s in the 30s. So I said there would be 30 in the 30s at the Event Rider Masters. Now, there was actually none in the 30s. But I suppose, again, it was one of those dressage tests for you that the pressure that was on you to hold, you were definitely our hot favourite at the time to win it. The dressage, it didn't go well, but you probably would have thought you could get it back in the middle phase.
Yeah, listen, Blenheim was just a giant disaster, basically. Let's just put it like that. Chico Bella is the most fantastic horse I've probably ever ridden in my whole life. I've been honoured to ride her, and if I get to ride her again, I'm always honoured to ride that horse. She is the most talented horse, the wonderful horse to ride you could ever possibly imagine. But she was not right at that event. Since we've had to go back, and she's actually had quite a bit of treatment. So you have to look back at it. I'm not one of these people that turns around and says, oh, well, she was this and she was that. She wasn't right. At the end of the day, it didn't go to plan.
Horses.
Tough luck. At the end of the day, that's horses. It didn't go to plan. What a bugger. Okay. What can you say?
Right.
The dressage wasn't right. The show jumping wasn't right. Had a pet fence down. The horse hasn't had a fence down. When was the last time? God knows. A long time ago.
Very long time. Yeah. You really wrecked my stats. Then if you're wondering, the last time was at Blenheim in 2013.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So quite a long time ago. And then to have a run out cross country, I mean, that's so not like her. I mean, yeah. So anyway, the horse wasn't right. She hopefully is fixed now. She's walking, and hopefully she'll be back sort of maybe May, June time next year.
Because I have a question for you on early next year. You were in the top 10 in the world rankings this year. You are currently sitting in 20th. Now, one of your counting scores is actually it was Chico Bella, wasn't it? Was it Brocadalva? Where you were second behind Karen and Fletcher. Are you going back? Because I think if you can get some points on the board, because you've got that big Badminton points still hanging in there. If you can get some points before Badminton, you would expect to be back up in that kind of top 7, 8, 9.
No,
That's
damn,
okay,
I'm not. No, I'm not. We'd sort of decided at the end of this year that we have, we've put everything into this year, and we were all pretty ready for a break. So the horses have all had a nice holiday. Actually, most of them are still out on holiday. So basically, we are going to bring the horses in and aim to start sort of mid-March. When we know we're not going to start as early as sort of mid-February.
Perfect.
Have you got plans in place for a lot of the horses for next year already, or are you going to...
I can tell you one thing. My only plan so far is to take Arctic Soul to Badminton.
Now, actually, this leads us on very nicely, because before we started recording this podcast, I said to you, Derm, I don't think you've ever heard me wax lyrical about Arctic Soul, because he is one of my favourite horses across country ever.
Me too.
What's he like to ride? Because he just looks amazing.
Yeah, he's actually insane to ride. He is incredibly big. So I'm 5'4" or 5. 5'5" on a really good day, 5'4" most of the time. Arctic Soul is over 17 hands, and he's a big, strong thoroughbred horse with a very quick brain, and likes to go at 100 miles an hour. So yeah, me and him have had to have a few conversations about, I've had to learn to go with it, and he's had to learn to perhaps listen to his jockey now and again. And we've kind of met halfway, and it works now, which is pretty cool. But it is insane to ride. I can tell you. This year at Badminton, I can remember jumping the first few fences and thinking, oh my days, he is on one. He's wanting to go at 100 miles an hour. Anyway, I managed to keep it vaguely under wraps until we jumped through Huntsman's Close, which was fence 7 or 8, something like that. And then there was a big long run, which was actually just over a minute of no jumps. And I thought, right, came out of Huntsman's Close, and I just... literally all I did was soften my hand, put my hands in his neck. Matthew, my boyfriend's actually really helped me with this, and I literally bridged my reins across his neck, and I let him gallop, and we did 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, oh god. So he literally just took off, and I thought, you know what, we need to have this moment of him just having his own way for me to be able to actually get him. So that was actually perfect, because we made up loads of time, and then we had loads of time.
How did it compare to
the rest of the course?
And it was like a B100.
Kind of, I suppose.
Pretty much, yeah.
How did it compare to the Blair round?
Yeah, the Blair round, to be totally honest with you, was just so easy. He just put round that. I was always up on the clock. I was 10 seconds up on the clock all the way around. I never once had to push. I never once had to kick. He just cantered around inside the time there. So that was, it was just raining a lot.
It was. Did you, because he was reserved for the World Equestrian Games, wasn't he, in 2014?
Yeah.
And that was really wet. Was part of you, I know he went to Burghley and was top 5, but was part of you a little bit like, God, he would have been awesome? I was gutted that we didn't get to go. Yeah, I think we were a little bit off with our form. Unfortunately, that was the year, wasn't it, that I was eliminated for jumping the wrong side of the flag at Badminton. So that was a real bummer, because he'd actually jumped round the whole course that year that hardly anyone managed to get round, and he jumped round and went through the finish and was fantastic. We made the mistake in the Huntsman's Close, and he jumped slightly across the fence and jumped the biggest part of the fence, and they said that I jumped the wrong side of the flag. And I mean, Yogi was fantastic, and bless him, spent 2 or 3 hours trying to appeal it, but they wouldn't have it anyway. So that was obviously part of the reason why my form wasn't quite there to get to the World Equestrian Games. But obviously that was a disappointment, but we went to Burghley and we got a top 5 placing, which then kind of guaranteed a place the following year at Blair. So And you say he's coming back from an injury and he's going to be back out firing.
Yeah, he just had a very, very tiny little niggle. It was actually literally like 3 or 4 days before selection, so that was pretty annoying. But he actually could have been back in work and could have gone to Po. But I decided to give him a nice long holiday and bring him back and save him to go back to Badminton instead.
Gemma, can I ask you a question? Because it's Gores Bridge week here and you've got a connection with Gores Bridge and you've got Santiago Bay as well.
Yeah.
I was chatting to Sam earlier and he was saying, make sure you ask Gemma now that she's like a global superstar of eventing. He's like, ask her about the journey over the last 4 years in terms of the mentality. So he remembers like 4 or 5 years ago when you were coming over and you were selling young horses at Go for Gold. It's on this week. I presume there's none over here for sale from you. Now you're looking at, God, if I look at the printout of the ones I've got in front of me, when you think of who we've talked about, like Arctic Soul, Quick Look, Chico Bella and Santiago Bay, I mean, you're creating a really strong string. How's that been how's the mentality shifted over those years? I've heard you talking about working hard and keeping believing all the way along. I mean, is it just that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a massive thing, to always have the belief. Whether it's big-headed or not, it's the way I am. I've always believed that I can do it. And having that belief is so important. If you don't have that, it's a pretty upward struggle. But I've always had the belief that I can do it. And it's just getting everything together at the right time. It's having the right horse, it's having the right form, it's having the right confidence in yourself, and for it all to come together this, last year and this year has just been pretty awesome. But obviously those years of selling horses at Goresbridge and, riding young horses, all those things has made me who I am and what I do. And I wouldn't ever take any of that
And I know
back,
you've got a pretty special support team from owners to Mummy Tat to Matt. I mean, there's a huge support team around you.
Yeah, massive. I've had such a huge help from my my family has just been absolutely incredible. I mean, they're so supportive to my team here at Tattleton. All my amazing girls, Elodie Frost, who has helped me for years and years, and now is my PA and kind of just generally helps with everything. I'm sitting on Elodie's bed.
Is it comfortable, Gemma?
It's a little bit hard, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Elodie's in her office and I can hear her giggling a lot.
We should probably explain that the first thing we heard when we came onto this podcast was Gemma quite loudly going, "Oh my God,
Elodie,
this bed is so hard."
Having her life rolled out on the airwaves.
Poor Elodie. Yeah, literally, I just completely just come in and I'm like, right, where do you want me to sit? She's like, right, probably not in my office when I'm trying to work. So, anyway, so obviously she's been amazing. And then all my owners, none of us riders could do it without our, loyal owners. They're so important to us. And then, bringing on the next batch of young horses as well is really important.
And you've got a really sort of strong link with that, haven't you? Because you're based at the base of Chris and Lisa Stone, who own Chili Morning, and you have lots and lots of Chili babies.
Yes, lots of naughty little gingers. Well, they're actually not naughty at all. They're lovely. So we've got Chili's Gem, who just was seventh at Le Lion d'Angers in the 7-year-old championship. So we were incredibly proud of her for that. And then we've got her younger brother, Chili Knight, who has had amazing, beautiful results. I mean, if you was to look at his stats, you'd get excited about that one, I would say.
He'll be doing it as soon as this podcast finished.
He's got pretty good results, that one. So yeah, we're fairly excited about both of those coming through. And then I've got a lovely Billy Sonora, who we purchased middle of this year, who's a 7-year-old who has got a little bit to go to make up a little bit of time, but she was 5th in her first 2-star at Gatcombe and was the only horse inside the time that day. So I'm really excited about her future as well.
I don't think it would be fair for us to talk about your current horses without looking back at the one that really kind of catapulted you into the limelight. And you really sadly lost him quite recently, but Jester's Quest was sort of your first...
My superstar.
Yeah.
He's my
Tell us about him.
He was an amazing horse. So I got a chance to ride on him when I was actually doing my very first 2-star at Windsor Park. Gosh, I can't even remember the year, but a long time ago. I think I was 18. There you go. So, I got a chance to ride on him and ended up going double clear. God knows how, because he was the most strange horse the way he went. He used to go with his head vertically in the air and he galloped with his head vertically in the air. He couldn't change legs and used to constantly be on the wrong leg. But I just learned to just ignore him and just ride him because he was such a good jumper. He was such a careful jumper that I trusted him and he trusted me to put him on the right spot. And we had an amazing partnership and went on that year to win the under-21 national championships at Weston Park. And then we went on and won 2 team gold medals and young rider level, and then jumped around Badminton and Burley. And it was certainly an amazing journey with that horse.
And he set you up really for your eventing career and into the international superstar,
global
as Sam
superstar,
put
he
it,
called her.
that you are now. Oh, global. That's much better. But Gemma, seriously, thank you so much for talking to us.
That's
we
okay.
really have loved hearing about your year. And we can't wait to see what you get up to in 2017. I'm sure we'll be watching very closely, not just Santiago Bay. And Derm will be looking up his stats on all of those chili babies as well. But thank you very much, Gemma Tattersall, on the Eventing Podcast.
Thank you.
eventingpodcast.com.
Oh, we hope you enjoyed that very special flashback to 2016 with Gemma Tattersall in the Locker Room Talk series. Brilliant to hear from her, and it's just going back to kind of relive those days of 2016 and the Rio Olympics, because of course 4 years on should have been Tokyo. Not to be, but fingers crossed for 2021. That is all we've got time for. And as always, please do like the show, subscribe, download it. We appreciate every single listen. And thank you very much for listening to this Eventing Podcast Classics.